You've heard it before? Someone hits record, plays it back, and a stranger's voice comes out of the speaker. It's supposed to be you, but it's higher than you expected. Thinner, slightly nasal, a little pathetic somehow. You wince. Everyone in the room says, "That's exactly how you sound." And you think, no. No, it isn't. That is not my voice. But here's the strange part. They're right and you're wrong. The voice on the recording is the real one. The voice in your head, the one you've trusted your whole life, is the one that doesn't exist. To understand why, you have to understand something most people never think about. You don't hear your own voice the way you hear anyone else's. When someone else speaks, the sound travels one way. It leaves their mouth, moves through the air, enters your ear, and vibrates your eardrum. One path. Simple. That's the only way their voice can reach you. And it's the only way your voice reaches them. But when you speak, something completely different happens. Your voice reaches your own ears by two paths at once. The first is the same air path everyone else hears, out of your mouth and around into your ears. But the second path is hidden. When your vocal cords vibrate, they don't just push air outward. They also send vibrations directly through the bones of your skull, through your jaw, your teeth, the dense bone around your inner ear. And this bone-conducted sound arrives at your hearing organ from the inside, mixed together with the air version into a single blended voice that only you will ever hear. Here's why that matters. Bone does not carry sound the way air does. Your skull is dense, and dense material transmits low frequencies far more efficiently than high ones. So, the bone-conducted version of your voice is boosted in the low end. Richer, deeper, warmer, fuller. Every time you speak, you are hearing your voice with the bass turned up, a private, enhanced mix piped straight through your head that no microphone can capture and no other person will ever hear. Then someone presses record, and the recording only captures the air path. The thin one. The one without the bone-conducted bass. For the first time in your life, you hear your voice the way it actually sounds to everyone else, stripped of the low-frequency richness your skull has been secretly adding since before you could talk. Of course it sounds wrong. You've spent your entire life listening to a remix, and now you're hearing the original, and the original sounds like a stranger. Researchers have measured this directly. The bone conduction pathway meaningfully shifts how you perceive the pitch and timbre of your own voice, particularly in the lower frequencies. Studies on bone conduction have shown that people consistently rate recordings of their own voice as less pleasant and higher pitched than the version they hear in their heads, while they rate other people's recorded voices perfectly normally. The distortion is specific. It only happens with your own voice because your own voice is the only one you hear through your skull. But this is where the story stops being about physics and starts being about your brain. Because there's a second reason the recording feels wrong, and it's the same reason a photo of yourself feels wrong. It's called the mere exposure effect, and it was described by the psychologist Robert Zayonk in the 1960s. The idea is almost embarrassingly simple. The more often you experience something, the more you prefer it. Not because it's better, just because it's familiar. Your brain learned over millions of years that the familiar is safe and the unfamiliar might be dangerous, and it quietly converts that ancient survival rule into a feeling of preference. Now count how many times you've heard the bone-conducted version of your voice. Every word you've ever spoken, every sentence, every laugh, every song in the shower from the moment you first made a sound. Tens of thousands of hours. That version is the most familiar sound in your entire existence. And the air-only recorded version? You've heard that a handful of times, always as a jarring surprise. So your brain does exactly what it was built to do. It labels the familiar internal voice as correct and comfortable, and it flags the unfamiliar recorded voice as wrong. Off. Not you. It isn't judging accuracy, it's judging familiarity and calling the result truth. There's a name for the discomfort you feel. Some researchers call it voice confrontation, the specific unease of hearing your recorded voice. And studies going back decades, including early work by the psychologists Philip Holtzman and Clyde Rousey in the 1960s, found that the reaction isn't only about pitch. People hearing their own voice played back reacted with genuine distress, and the researchers suggested it wasn't just the unfamiliar sound. It was hearing aspects of yourself, things your voice reveals about your emotions, your hesitations, your accent, that you never intended to broadcast and never normally hear from the outside. The recording doesn't just sound different, it exposes you. Think about what your voice actually carries, not just words. It carries where you grew up. It carries how nervous you are right now. It carries whether you're tired, whether you're forcing enthusiasm, whether you mean what you're saying. When you speak, you're too busy talking to hear any of it. But on a recording, you become the listener. You hear yourself the way strangers hear you, and suddenly all of it is exposed at once. The accent you thought you'd lost, the nervous upward lilt, the filler words, the flatness. It's not that the voice is bad, it's that you're finally on the outside of it, and no one is comfortable standing on the outside of themselves. So, put the two forces together. First, the physics. Your recorded voice is genuinely missing the deep bone-conducted bass you've always heard, so it really does sound thinner and higher than your internal version. And second, the psychology. Your brain has heard the internal version tens of thousands of times, and the external version almost never, so it treats the real one as an imposter. The physics makes it different. The brain makes it wrong. Neither of them is telling you the truth about how you actually sound. Here's the twist. Everyone you have ever spoken to, your family, your friends, your partner, has only ever heard the recorded version. The thin one. The one you can't stand. To them, that is simply your voice. It's the voice attached to every memory they have of you, every conversation, every joke, every I love you. They don't hear it as thin or nasal or wrong. They hear it as you because for them it always has been. The voice you're embarrassed by is the voice the people who love you would recognize anywhere. And the voice you think is your real voice, the warm, rich, resonant one in your head? No one has ever heard it. No one ever will. It exists only inside your own skull, a private concert for an audience of one. Impossible to record, impossible to share, gone the instant you stop speaking. You are the only person on earth who will never truly know what your voice sounds like. There's something almost freeing in that. The next time you hear yourself on a recording and cringe, remember what's actually happening. You're not hearing a worse version of your voice. You're hearing the true one, finally without the bass boost your skull has been adding your whole life, filtered through a brain that mistakes unfamiliar for wrong. The cringe isn't information about your voice. It's just the sound of meeting yourself for the first time. Someone hits record and plays it back. A stranger's voice comes out of the speaker, and for the first time, you're hearing the one person in the room the way everyone else always has.